Welcome back to the Be a Force podcast, brought to you by B Squared Management. I'm your host, Melissa Lopez, and on today's episode, I have with me Matt Rosenthal. So we're going to talk all about everything that he's got going on, and he's going to help you with your IT services. He's going to talk to us about business and so much more. But first, Matt, how are you?
I'm good. Melissa, how are you?
I'm good. So I'm excited to talk to you about all of this, especially because I keep telling everybody, and I know I sound like a broken record, but I keep saying, now's a great time to look into those different avenues that maybe you didn't have time to look at before, because with all the lockdowns and everything going on, now you have a little extra time, which is unfortunate because it's causing lots of people lots of pain. But if you can find the silver lining and use it to your best ability, then I also think that's a good idea. So let's talk about your journey. So tell me about your journey through business and IT.
So I took a journey that I think is common among people that are entrepreneurs, that are business owners, that tend to be successful. It's not like it's always the case, but my journey was, I went to college and did all the traditional things you're supposed to do, but the person I am today and the businessman that I am today and everything that I'm doing today, it really all happened just by making a lot of mistakes, a lot of failures, a lot of discipline, fortitude, and commitment. And so it goes back to being a little kid. It really started with growing up a little rougher, not having the things that you want and having to work for things you wanted. And, learning along the way that if you want something to happen, if you want, a dream to be a reality, that you have to take action and you have to do it yourself. Like, nobody's going to hand you anything and nothing's going to happen unless you just go make it happen. So although I went to college, like I said, and I have an MBA and I have all these certifications, at the end of the day, it's really, the path is really it's a journey of failure. You fall down, you get up, you fall down, you get up, and then you don't make the same mistakes again. You learn from them and you learn how to pivot. That's a broad answer, but it's, the boring answer is I went to high school, went to college. It took me 10 years to graduate college, and along the way I learned IT and I became an IT guy. That's the boring answer.
Well, I don't even think that's a boring answer because, 10 years to graduate college, if you don't mind sharing, why did it take so long?
So I didn't really do good in high school, right? I was busy working every day. I would come home from school and just work from 2:30 or 3 o'clock until 11 o'clock every night, starting, when I was 13 or 14. So I think I graduated in the very bottom of my high school class. Not because I'm not smart, because I just didn't participate. Right. And I think back then, this was in the late 80s, early 90s, I took the SATs. I did terrible. I think I got a 780 or 800. It was something like that. It was something ridiculously low that was I just signed my name and I guessed on a few answers. So I got into a pretty bad college, or a college that certainly wasn't what I could have if I had applied myself. And I went there for 3 years. And again, because I had no guidance, the reason I was able to go was because an uncle of mine who had passed away had left me $50,000 for college, which back then could have gotten me through college. So I decided in my third year that I wasn't going to have enough money to finish college there. And I transferred back to the college in my hometown. And when I did that, I ended up just kind of going on a 3 or 4 year, not paying attention in school, going out and hanging out with my friends too much, working too much. And ultimately I failed out of college. So I just straight up failed out of the college I was going to. So when I was going to college those first 3 years, I was actually doing pretty well because I was focused. I was getting all A's and B's. I was doing great. I ended up failing out of college. And I took 6 months off. I was driving a truck. And just to pay off some credit card bills I got myself in trouble with. And after about 6 months, I went back to the dean of the school. I wanted to be a policeman. So I was going to the School of Sociology. And I basically told him my story, told him the truth. And he said, look, I'll let you back in. If you get anything lower than a B, you're automatically expelled. You take over every class you failed, which was pretty much all of them. And that's what I did. So for the next 5 or 6 years, I drove a truck all day from about 4 in the morning till about 5 in the afternoon, came home, went to school at night, and did that for the next, whatever it was, 5 or 6 years to finish. So it took me 10 years in total. I ended up getting straight A's, obviously, once I got back in, because I I was working at it. And so I finished, I was 29 years old when I graduated college. That's how I did it.
Wow, but you did it.
I did it. And you know what the thing was? By that time, I was already working like a full-time job in IT in New York City. I wasn't driving a truck anymore. I moved on to doing that. And when I finally graduated, there was no graduation. There was no anything. It was like, oh, I'm done. I'm done today. And they just mailed me my diploma. It was very anticlimactic. It was weird. Like, what do I do with this? I have a degree in sociology, and now I'm an IT guy, you know?
And now what do we do?
So I swore I'd never go back to school again. And 3 years later, I went and got my MBA.
Wait a minute. You said that's how I would never go back to school, except I went back and got my MBA.
I swore I'd never go back to school again. And 3 years later, I got my MBA.
Oh my goodness.
I went to get it. I didn't just get, so 3 years later, I went back to school and then proceeded to get an MBA.
So what made you decide to go back and get an MBA after I will never go back to school? Because I'll be honest, I say that all the time. I'm like, I'm never going back to school. Like what a mess. I mean, it was worth it, but like, I don't want to go back.
Yeah, it wasn't worth it, actually. I'm like I mean, everybody should get a great education, but there's no connection as far as I'm concerned, unless you're like an Ivy League school and you go to work in on like Wall Street or in some bank or something. I mean, the money and the time spent on college for me has nothing to do with how I make a living today. Zero, nothing to do with like whatsoever.
I'll be honest, mine too. Same.
And it's true for most people. So that's a whole other podcast or interview talking about my views on what you should really do. So the education that I've gotten and the underneath it all, it's the school that really educated me was the school of life. And doing all the things, I just told you one story. I could tell you a lot more. It's the school of life that prepared me. So when I ended up going back for the MBA, it was because at that point I was working in IT. I had started to climb the ladder in a very large company, like a multi-billion-dollar company, doing IT. And that career path, had I stuck with it, it was necessary in corporate America. It's necessary to kind of follow these corporate norms, which is, okay, let me get more education, let me get more certifications, let me do whatever they want me to do so I can continue to climb this ladder as they tell me I'm supposed to. And I was doing it. So I went back to get my MBA mainly because they paid for it. But secondly, because I was much more mature at that point. I had gotten into at that point I'm in my early 30s already. And I wanted to learn more. And it made sense at the time. But at that same time, I began to discover that I had an entrepreneurial spirit, which I had always had. I just didn't know what to call it. And so after I got my MBA and I got a few other things that they had sent me for, I actually left corporate America and began the very interesting up and down, wins and losses journey of basically the past 10 years of my life, which has got me to where I am now.
Well, okay, let's talk about where you are. So now you've got a whole other business, right? And you're helping people with IT and business. So, and you've got all of that going on. So tell me all about that.
So you want to know specifically about like what I do, like the services?
Of course, because we gotta make sure everybody knows.
Got to educate. All right. So yes. What we want to do, what we do is, so that information, education, and experience that I got in corporate was valuable to me in ways that I never could have seen, which I use now. And that's because I help small businesses. But let me define small business. A small business could have like 500 employees. It could be like, a $250 million company. It's still a small business relative to what a medium and large business is. So I help small businesses with their IT strategy. We solve all kinds of IT problems, but we help them with their strategy, and we help them figure out like what are the goals the company has and how does that line up with what you're doing with your IT? Like, does it make sense? Like, are we going to put in solution A when it doesn't really help the business reach its goals over the next 5 years? And we really should be putting in solution B. So what that corporate experience gave me was this ability to see and really understand behind the scenes, under the hood, how large businesses, small and medium, all really run, and how to, like, from a business perspective, like design and deploy and support and deliver like the right IT services and solution. It's very uncommon in my business for companies like mine to have that point of view, because most people owners, CEOs of companies like mine, they all came up as technicians. Even though I was an engineer, I really was more of a student of business and process and workflow than I was of the technology. So I'm able to deliver that, which is a pretty cool experience to like every type of business that we work with. So basically, if you have an IT problem, or even if you don't have one and you want to strategize and you want to make sure you're doing the right thing, that's what we do. Like we help you solve that, and we also hold you accountable.
Oh,
Like you
I
can't
love
just say
that.
we're going to do it. We're going to hold you accountable. Like my job, I was dealing with the actually right after I hang up with you, I have a meeting with the COO of one of my larger clients. I said to him a
Mhm.
week ago on a phone call. We had a monthly call, and he's not doing something that he should be doing relative to cybersecurity. And there's reasons for it. It's not so easy to get the funding that they need. But I looked at him and I said, listen, I know you might get upset. You might get frustrated because I'm bringing this up again, but you must do A, B, and C. And I said, you also just know part of my job and what you have me here for is to hold you accountable. And he looked at me, he's like, I know, you're right. And I'm glad you're holding me accountable. This is a
Okay.
COO of a very, very large company. And everybody needs to be held accountable. Some people, doesn't matter what your role is. So that's part of what we do. Like we hold you accountable to make sure that you're doing the right thing with your technology so that you're not taking unnecessary risks with your company so that you can make
Mhm.
the money you want to make. Like businesses are in business to make money. There's no
Obviously.
shame in saying you need to make money. So
Right.
we
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
help
Yeah.
you. So that's my
So,
answer to your question.
okay. So here's, well, my next thing is like, okay, and this is something I literally never thought of until this moment. Um, so how does IT affect your income, right? So because I always think about like, okay, we have to do social media, you have to do this, you have to do that, and but like IT is not one of those things that I thought about and how it affects your, the profitability of your company. So what would you say is one thing that most companies don't think about when it comes to IT and making sure that their IT is set up correctly so that they're able to be profitable?
I don't think that most companies, and so we'll just say, I think that the leaders, the managers, the owners, the CEOs of most companies, as smart and as good as they are at what they do, I don't think yet that they really fully understand that IT is what makes their company profitable. Because when you take the
Mm.
technology out of the company, there is no company.
Mm.
And it's true, and it's unfortunate. And what's happening is there's a shift going on, a generational shift right now,
Yeah.
because as people are going from their who grew up in the past 20 15 10, I think it's 10 15 years, that generation of people in business are now becoming the people who are late 30s early 40s, who are becoming the leaders in business,
Mm-hmm.
and they understand. But at the same time, many businesses are still have leadership that's a few generations ahead. And so there's this interesting transition right now with people who are leaders in business realizing how important and central the technology is to making money. Um, I'll tell you a quick story. Do I have time to tell you a 5-minute story?
Of course.
Okay. So yesterday, or actually a week ago, we had a very large client of ours, they're a manufacturer. They had a cybersecurity breach, right? We hear about it every day. Everybody's getting
Mm-hmm.
hit with cyber breaches. So they had a breach that encrypted all their files and many, many servers. And it shouldn't be a big deal because everything is being backed up and we watch over it and we make sure everything's backed up. However, we're not their day-to-day IT company. They have in-house IT. So we do give guidance and consulting when asked, but we don't really do their day-to-day. We're their cloud provider only in this case. So, or if they need a project, we'll help them with a project. Well, they got hit so hard that they were out for several days, and they're manufacturing something that they distribute around the country, and a lot of other companies rely on them to get their jobs done. The the truth of the matter is that there's been recommendations made through risk assessments and through conversations over the years about things that should have been done to at least be more proactive, that if this type of thing happens, which will happen to everybody, it's inevitable, we can at least do our best to prevent it or to minimize it. So some things, like the most obvious things, were in place, but some things that would have been new budget items. That would have been new things that you could put into the environment to potentially find something that's there that shouldn't be there. They didn't want to do it. They didn't want to spend the money. And it's a very small amount of money. It's not a criticism of them. It's just an observation that this is still how a lot of companies run. They look at IT as, look, we're going to do the bare minimum, make sure everything is good, and that's it. We're not investing in it. If this company had invested in their technology and looked at it and realized that we're out of business if our technology is not working, they might have done what it was that we had recommended. In this case, they did, right? So I don't know how much it cost them to be down. They were down last Monday, last Tuesday, and into Wednesday. We had them back up and running on those days, but not fully because it was such a bad breach that they were impacted in so many different ways. So what was the total cost to them? I mean, forget what we cost them. God knows how many hundreds of thousands of dollars they lost in productivity. So it's because of that point that I made before. You know, that you have to, if you're leading a company and you're making decisions, you're not going to make money. You're going to lose money, or you're certainly not going to be as profitable as you could be if you don't look at your technology as the single most important thing to making money. It's not the people. And I don't take it the wrong way. People are important, but the people that are in the positions are all doing roles that can be filled by other people. That's something everybody knows. The technology is not, it's there to solve a problem. And the problem it's there to solve is to make sure that you're as efficient and productive and that you're running with the smoothest workflows and processes that you possibly can so that you can make money and you can be more profitable. If it's not working, none of that's going to happen.
Right. And you need all of that. And it's so interesting because, like, I mean, like I said, that's one of those things, like, I never thought about, like, how that affects your business. Never thought about it. Never. And I'm sure lots of other businesses, or lots of businesses, could probably relate, like, oh, I didn't realize how valuable that truly is to us. Of course we want it, but we don't realize how it is. We're just looking at, getting customers in, and that's it, without looking at the IT. So for somebody who's just starting, now this is a two-part question, so it's okay if you have to ask me again, but somebody who's just starting a business, what advice would you give them for IT? And the second part of that question is somebody who's in IT, who's looking to do what you're doing, what advice would you give them?
Oh, wow. Okay. Ask me the first part again. I didn't write that down.
I know. I was like,
oh,
this is a heavy one. So somebody who's just now starting a business and now is beginning to understand the value of IT, what advice would you give them? Let's start there.
Okay. So there's a couple things. One, make sure you have a mentor. So I know we're talking about IT, but make sure you have a mentor, somebody that's made a lot of mistakes. Make sure your mentor is somebody that actually has had a successful business, that actually is giving you advice because they know what they're talking about. And inside of that advice, they should certainly be recognizing and giving you guidance on the importance of technology and just how to look at it. The other thing to keep in mind is to start with the end in mind. So if you're starting a business, maybe the end for you is the goal is 30 years from now to sell it. Maybe the goal is 5 years from now to sell it. Maybe the goal is to be even in business in 3 years and see what happens. Whatever it is, you have to build the foundation of the technology infrastructure in a way that it can be scaled and built out and expanded. So don't build it just, I hear people all the time like, oh, I'm starting my own business. I'm going to go get Google this or GoDaddy that. And they start up this one-man band type of thing or just a few people. And although there might not be the money, that they want to have up front to invest in technology, you really need to talk to somebody who understands at least the lower cost way to set something up that's still going to be scalable. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself being successful and a year or two later having to rip out everything that you did and do it all over again, which I see all the time. Happens frequently, but you don't have to do that. You can get into something early on that is reasonably affordable, and it's just part of your startup cost, and it's scalable, and you can grow with the business. So you got to have to know where you're going, but don't look at it as unimportant from day one. I'll tell you something interesting. I have an existing client of mine. If you listen to this, he's going to probably call me and yell at me. he's definitely on the younger side. He's stepping into a business that existed that was his father's, and decided he wanted to make some technology changes. I gave my guidance, and respectfully, he went in a different direction, and it didn't go so well. And everything that I said was going to happen happened. Never said that to him, but in the end, he turned back and he's like, I think that maybe we need to go back to what we were doing before. Basically what you had advised us to do. When you have a trusted advisor that has a lot of experience, that has your best interests at heart, which should be what a trusted advisor is. That's the other thing that you need when you're starting up, or if you're doing anything with technology at all. You really need a trusted advisor that knows what they're talking about, that understands technology and business, because it's not enough to just understand technology. If it's just understanding technology is basically a tech telling you what they can set up, but they're missing the aspect where they can help you on the business side to see things that you don't see. And that's the problem. Most people who are in leadership positions see what they see, but they don't see what's not obvious.
Right.
And because it's not obvious, they make a ton of mistakes. So you need a good mentor, you need a good trusted advisor, and you really need to look at IT as an investment that's going to be scalable, because your intention is to grow.
Right. And
That's number
it's
two.
funny. I'm going to say it till I'm blue in the face. Like, I would never have thought about the value of IT when it comes to growing your business. I mean, when I hear you speak about it, it makes sense. It makes so much sense, but it's one of those things that gets overlooked. And that's definitely, I can totally understand where you have to invest in that. So now, somebody who's in IT who would like to help businesses grow, what advice would you give them?
So somebody who's in IT, maybe they're like a technician and they want to start their own company.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. You need to take a real serious look in the mirror and ask yourself if you have a problem with rejection. If you can't take rejection, you should not be in business, starting a business, because you're going to get rejected more than you're going to have more losses than wins initially. You need to have the ability, the desire to actually be okay with, I'm thinking of different words, to be okay with working like all the time, because that's what's necessary. For like 10 years, all I did was work, and you have to be willing to do that. And it does impact other parts of your life. So you have to be able to balance and keep it all together. You certainly have to have some sort of sense of either a business experience, because you've worked with other people in business, and you have the confidence that you understand money, like finance, flow of money, customer service, marketing, sales, a little bit of psychology, because I think if you ask me what my main job is I'm probably half of the time I spend being a therapist, because the people in my company, everybody has emotions. And so if you don't understand people's emotions and you can't navigate that, you're going to have a hard time owning a company, because you're not going to be able to lead people.
That's a good point.
It's a very interesting combination of ingredients that you need to have your own company and to have it actually be successful. And I'm assuming we're starting with nothing. So that's how I started, with nothing in my basement. It was just me, and it grew into what it grew into, because I had all those characteristics, because I had those experiences over the course of my my career. There's a lot of things we didn't talk about, but I had a lot of experience in each of those things, and it kind of all came together. So for somebody who's just going to start up, I think this is the best way to sum the advice up. You probably want to make sure you have a partner or a group of people, so that it's not just you thinking you're going to start a company and then just go, hit a home run. It doesn't work that way. You can get it going that way if you're multi-talented and you've got that ability to kind of give yourself up in that way. Otherwise, you need a partner or two, and you still need some good guidance and mentoring and trusted advisors behind you, trying kind of directing you so you don't step on the landmines. It's complicated. Like,
Yeah,
it's not easy to start a business.
it does sound complicated.
It's very complicated, especially right
Yeah.
now with what's going on. Like, even to be in business and to navigate your own business so that you can stay in business, it takes. What I did back in March to get my company through the 6 months that followed was very strategic, very intentional, and we got through. A lot of companies are not making it, and even now they may not make it through this next wave.
Yeah.
So far, we're okay because it goes back to all the skills and everything I just told you about. If you're starting a company now, you better really do your homework and really make sure that you've got it figured out.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I know.
I mean, you should do it. You should give it a shot, and you should also really ask yourself, can I afford to fail completely and start over again?
If
Is it
need be.
okay? Is it okay? Because it's okay for a lot of people. Depends on your age. Depends on your, if you're married with 5 kids, it's probably a bad idea. If you're 25 years old, go for it. Try 5 different companies. Let them all fail. It's okay. You know.
I love that attitude. Love that. Love that. Yeah, it's a tough time. It's crazy. I mean, starting a business is hard enough. But right now I know it's extremely hard.
It's like having navigated what I've navigated over the years. I speak to business owners all the time. I can give advice, just like I receive advice, and it's like it's only because I've been through things and had so many experiences, both positive and negative, that you're able to have almost like a sense of like wisdom, which is really what you're really asking me is for my wisdom in asking that question. And it's like, go for it if you can, and just be prepared for the pain, because it's a very painful experience. However, it's extremely rewarding if you
Right.
can make it work.
Right. Because if it works, it's so worth it. But you got
I have a wonderful life now. I'm going to be 48 this weekend. I have a wonderful life.
happy birthday.
Thank you. But it's not because of, people see me now, but there's that. What about the past 20 years?
Right.
It didn't just get here. There's grit, and there's like discipline, and there's pain, and there's sleepless nights, and there's sleepless weekends, and that's what it is to start a business.
Wow. 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 Wow.
But
Yeah.
it's really rewarding. At the end of the day, it's very rewarding when it really works.
And but and like with social media and everything, we miss those parts, right? So we don't see that, right? We just see everybody showcasing, oh, look at where I'm at now, but we don't know what they went through, right? No one's posting,
Right.
oh, here's when I failed 3 times in the same week or the same hour or the same, you know what I'm saying? We just see like life is amazing. Um,
Yeah, nobody talk. You know who talks about it? Gary V. You follow Gary Vaynerchuk? Gary V
no,
talks about it.
no, I don't. I don't follow him.
It's okay. Gary V is like, he's like probably the number one, like influencer out there, super successful, self-made. But he's the guy. He talks about it, and there's certain people that I follow that are like well-known influencers who are all successful in business, like built monster companies. They tell the stories, and I have my own videos that I put out, and I tell stories. It's a balance. Like, you don't
Awesome.
want to be too, the stories can almost come across as negative after a while, but that's where the lessons are learned.
Great.
That's where you get the what is it called? PTG, post traumatic growth. Like when you go
Oh,
through
I like that.
something,
I like that.
I wish I could take credit for it, but everybody's used it. When you go through that, there's no question that you come out stronger, better. Like I know tomorrow that I could walk into somebody's company, help them run it, and help them solve a ton of problems. If I walked away from my company today, for example, or I could start a company tomorrow and probably have a decent chance at least making it go somewhere, because I've learned so much. I've made so many damn mistakes.
Right. But that's life,
And so
right?
there's just truth in that.
Well, I mean, I was a gymnast and we've always been taught as gymnasts, you fall 7 times, you get up 8. And like you just failure, like falling off. I always tell, the kids when I work with them, when I coach, I'm always like, you have to learn how to fall, but more importantly, you also have to learn how to get back up. So it's okay to fall. So when they fall, I'm always like, that's okay. Try it again, because you have to be able to fall. When you work in the entertainment industry, you're going to get more no's than yeses. And that's just the way things go. And it sucks. And in the moment it's hard, but once you kind of get used to getting no's, it's like not that big of a deal. It's like, okay, well,
It's so true. I mean, oh my God, the amount of rejection that I've experienced, I don't even hear it anymore. Like I don't, I'm like immune to it. It's the no's. It just doesn't mean anything. It's like, okay, we'll move on.
all right,
Um,
well, try again.
you kind of have to. You really have to be like that to be in business.
Yeah.
Um, It's just the way that it is. You can, if you're talking about new business, you can meet with 100 people. Maybe you get out of the 100 people, maybe 5 of them, people that you can help and that want your help. And that's like a small percentage. I'm making that number up. It's just, it is kind of
Right.
small like that though. So what do you do
Yeah.
about the other 95? Do you beat yourself up and do you like lose your focus and your dedication? No, you got to keep on going and figure out, well, what is it about me that I didn't connect with those other 95 people? Because it's never about them. It's about you. Right.
Well,
So
I feel like it's a mixture, right? Because it's like you have who you're trying to attract. So what is it about that clientele that doesn't work for your business, so that when you're working to the next business or the next client, like what wasn't working for the last one, right? So it's not like, because I feel like when you say it's about you, it sounds like self-deprecating, but it's more so like, okay, what were they looking for? Maybe I just reached out to the wrong client. Maybe they were just somebody that wasn't built for what I'm serving,
yeah, it's true. Like so if you look at, like, it took me a long time to figure out in the beginning that I shouldn't meet with 100 people, that I should only meet with the ones that I feel like I connect with. So that's kind of what I mean by like looking back at myself, because like I used to take, which is necessary in the beginning, anybody that's interested, you'll just go talk to anybody.
Yes.
But the reality is,
Yeah.
like, if you have a way of delivering your service and a way of working with people, it's only gonna really work for people that you connect with. Because there's people that just don't want you. That's why we all choose the stores we choose and choose the service providers we choose, because we feel some sort of connection. We like something about the way that they either are or the way they deliver service, whatever it is. So those 95 people that I ended up not working with, for example, yeah, I mean, there's something about it where it could have just been this, that they didn't want the service or something, but I have to be able to identify like the best use of my time, and that I really invest that time wisely, when many of them I probably sensed it wasn't going to be something that was going to be a connection anyway.
Uh-huh.
It's a different, so now I do that. Like I get people that call me, email me, they'll find me different ways. I'm much more selective now, because I know how much time can be wasted, and time is the most valuable commodity that you have. I mean, there's
That
nothing
it
more
is.
valuable than your time.
That it
There's
is.
nothing more valuable. What you do with it is extremely important. So do I want to spend time with somebody who I can tell from the first 5-minute conversation doesn't believe in technology, doesn't value it, doesn't probably won't value me? And how can I tell that? Because they apparently know more than I do. They're telling me how things are. And I can pick up on that. It's like an emotional intelligence, right? You can pick up on that type of thing. And I say to myself, well, that's not the kind of client I want, because we're never going to really connect, because they don't even see the value in me and as a trusted advisor, because they're already talking about, how they want things done or how things have always been done. And you just, with time, you learn to pick up on that. And so I look at myself and say, okay, I have to keep making sure I do a good job of being able to read people and being able to make sure I'm using my time wisely, and that I'm not wasting my time with people that I just can't help because they don't want my kind of help.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
They don't want to be helped.
Or they don't want to be helped. That's actually what I took the time to go deeper. That's what I meant by that before.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
I do look at myself like that, and yeah, there's some people that's not, it's not going to apply. It just never would have worked. But, you got to
Yeah.
really use your time wisely. So if I'm going to spend my time on something, I'm probably better off spending my time on marketing, on meeting new people and finding, good connections, and really useful sales activities. That all connects back to the question about starting a business. Like, this is the stuff you have to think about. Like, this is what you spend your time doing.
Yeah.
You
Yeah. 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 Totally. Oh my God. I feel like I could talk to you for hours. You were right. We're going to talk for too many hours.
I
Um,
told you.
I knew well, you know what? Immediately I knew it was going to be, I knew it was going to be one of those days. But so let everybody know, Matt, where they can find your services, find out more about you. Plus, of course, we're going to have to talk again, but in the meantime, let everybody know.
Okay, so the best thing to do to contact me directly is to email me. And so it's my first name, Matt, dot my last name, Rosenthal. And I'm spelling it because we're doing this over audio. I don't know if there's going to be a video.
Just
So
audio.
it's Matt.Rosenthal at mind-core.com. or just send me a message on LinkedIn. If you just look me up on LinkedIn under Mindcore, you'll see me pop up there. That's the best way to do it. I also have a YouTube page. I'm doing tons of videos. I'm probably gonna have about 300 or 350 out, new ones in 2021. I forgot what year it was, in 2021. So I just put a lot of time into like educating people and like just the stuff we're talking about. I have tons of videos where I talk about this stuff, so you can find me there too. If you'd like to work
Awesome.
with me, though, definitely reach out to me. Or if you just want to bounce something off me, I'm happy to give advice. I enjoy that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So check out Matt Rosenthal. I mean, you're going to have to come back because we have, as you've already mentioned, we have a whole other podcast episode to talk about so many other things. But in the meantime, be safe and thank you again for talking to me today.